Welcome to Business Playmakers, the podcast that meets with innovators, trailblazers, and leaders to learn about their experience and what success really means. Hosted by entrepreneur and leadership coach Kyle Gorman.
The Business Playmakers podcast is brought to you by Employer Blueprint. Employer Blueprint is focused on developing great leaders and high-performing managers through one-on-one coaching and group workshops. To schedule coaching for you or your team, simply visit employerblueprint.com. On today's episode, I'm pleased to introduce you to Tim Hyland. Tim has really had a very distinguished career, especially in the insurance business, and certainly has a passion around helping others in the insurance business, and has done a great job of developing resources that actually help other independent insurance agencies really get up and going and help them succeed through their journey. So all that being said, Tim, you want to take a few minutes here and just kind of tell us about your story and your experience and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, Kyle, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to do that. Actually, I've had two different careers. My first career when I came out of college was in teaching and coaching. I had played basketball at the college level, and I was always interested in helping younger people. So I got into teaching and coaching at the secondary level and did that for about 10 years. However, I was pretty much starving by that time. I had 3 kids, and my wife suggested that maybe back in those days, by the way, the coaching people did not make what they make today. That was before ESPN and before Nike. So anyway, the career pathing was very tough. So anyway, I jumped out and started looking for jobs. And be honest with you, ironically, not by mistake, but not by my choice, I ended up in the insurance business. And I actually had a master's degree in education, so they hired me to be an administrator at this independent insurance agency. But found out that I was pretty good at selling also, because they said you could sell. And again, I had 10 years of coaching behind me, so I had a huge network of kids that I had taught. I'm the oldest of 7 from a very sales-driven family. My dad was a car salesman. I have a brother that's a car salesman, and so I had a huge network of people that I knew in this city. So as it turned out, after a couple short years of that agency, my brother Pat lost his job at International Harvester, and so he and I started our agency from scratch in 1983, which was not really a good economy to start a business in. I think interest rates were like 14%, and we were young and dumb and didn't know any different, I guess. Sometimes that's a blessing.
Yeah, sometimes. That's right.
Yeah. So we jumped in and built our own independent agency from scratch. So, and again, really what happened is that over the years, through hook or crook, and because I didn't have any background in building a business, I literally had to learn the hard way by trying different things and falling on my nose many times and then stepping back and starting over. And so we built our independent agency slowly with 2 guys, and then 2 guys and 1 lady, then 2 guys and 2 ladies. And then over the years, we brought on new producers. We actually merged a couple little agencies into our operation. We bought another agency. And we pretty much progressed, I guess, as most small businesses do, on a very slow upward trajectory for a while. And then, interestingly enough, I had this idea. Our industry was changing, and just like in our general economy, just like the big box stores were taking over everything, meaning the small drugstores, the small businesses, were hardware stores were having a hard time making it. Well, it was the same thing in the insurance business. It became difficult for small agencies to compete, to keep markets, to get into the profit sharing levels. And so I had this idea about forming a network, whereas, we would be a mentor agency helping the younger and smaller agencies, not only survive, but hopefully grow and develop.
Yeah.
Now, ironically, about that time, this is about 1997, and we had started in 83, so almost 14 years down the road, I was approached by this group out of New England called SIA, which had done the same thing up there. And we're looking to find people who wanted to replicate it in other areas. And so instead of reinventing the wheel, I partnered with them and we began building what we call a master agency. And interestingly enough, I named it Agents Helping Agents. Mm-hmm. The whole idea is that, we wanted to find people who were doing just what we've done. Right. And we would kind of be the master agency or the mentor agency to help them through the early days and the pains of growing a small business. And it was all about an organization of agents trying to help agents as opposed to companies helping agents or any other outside influence. So that was in 1997. We signed our first, what we call today, independent strategic member in 1998 in May. And now, at this point in time, 20 years later, this is our 20th anniversary. Yeah. Agents Helping Agents. We have 151 agencies in Kentucky, Indiana, and Tennessee. So I'll just finish this little part by saying it's kind of interesting where I've ended up, because really what I've done the last 20 years is work with younger people, teach them as I tell them that I've made every mistake you could possibly make in building an agency. So I can certainly show you what not to do and kind of mentor them through those early, dark days of trying to get something established. Yeah. So as it turns out, I'm back to teaching, I'm back to coaching. Yeah. So my whole business experience has kind of led me right back to where I started out as a teacher and a coach. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's really interesting. And it's especially just kind of neat to hear that, the idea, of course, we talk a lot about in the business world about these transferable skills and that's a great point, being an educator and a coach and being able to see how that can be used. Those skills can be used even in the business world and helping other people in business, being able to kind of coach their businesses and help them. That those skills are oftentimes so similar. And yet, we like to see these silos in different industries, as though education doesn't relate to other industries, or your industry doesn't relate to mine. And so it's neat how you've been able to kind of mesh those two and go back to the skill sets that you always had a strength around. So very neat, very unique career journey there, Tim. So along the way, have you had any particular mentors that you've looked to that have helped you, or maybe even kind of just helped shape who you are today, or what you've accomplished along the way?
Well, interestingly enough, and in a nice situation, my dad, of all people, again, I was the oldest of 7, 6 boys and 1 girl. As I said, my dad was a automobile salesman. And, I think he had a lot to do, because initially when I got into the business, and I'll just share this with you, I think when I got into insurance, like a lot of people, 1, I didn't know anything about it. Mm-hmm. But 2, I had kind of a negative vibe about it all, as sometimes people feel about insurance, because I really didn't know what it was. And so anyway, my dad was real instrumental in saying, that in sales, whether you're selling cars or you're selling insurance, whatever it is, there's some basic mechanics that work in all cases. And, one of them is being able to build trust and with people and relationships. Yeah. And he was really good at that. When we started our business, we modeled our business after what he had done in his car business. Mm-hmm. And subsequently, another brother of mine who came in behind him, we kept constant contact with both our prospects and our clients. Mm-hmm. We thanked them at least 3 or 4 times a year. We had a lot of when we wrote a policy, we always said handwritten, thank yous to them, which was one of his techniques. And the whole idea was, again, we kind of adapted his sales process, which is that sales is not a one and done deal. It's an ongoing process. And that, a lot of people see it once the policy's written, well, it's done, and it's just not the case. And so as a direct result of keeping our sales alive and keeping in touch with people, we developed a tremendous network of referrals, which is the ideal way, that you want to get business. Right. And so my dad, I think, really was the initial driver, in helping us establish our business. And, I think one of the problems you run into with young people today and in our business is, they just don't want to tell anybody that they're an insurance salesman. And I'll tell you a funny story. The agency I was working with when I started out, of course, I came from teaching and coaching.
Mm-hmm.
But when they hired me, they ran a little bit in the paper with my picture, and it said Timothy M. Hyland, account executive.
Yeah.
And I ran home to mom and dad, and of course, my mom was going, well, look, they have a little thing in Tim in the paper, and he's an account executive.
There you go.
And my dad looks at me and said, let me tell you something, son. You are a salesman, and don't you ever forget that.
Yeah.
What he was trying to tell me is don't get so high and mighty that you forget that the basis of any business is the sales process. And if that doesn't happen, there is no business to service.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so, yeah, certainly my dad was, very instrumental there.
Yeah. Well, that's and that's certainly a great lesson to learn, I think. And you're right. There's sometimes a stigma on this idea of being a salesperson, but there's a lot of pride that can be taken in that too. And someone that's able to provide the economic engine for an organization and kind of ultimately provide what drives it forward.
Yeah.
And so, Tim, through the course of your career, certainly you've had some ups and downs, but is there any particular kind of peak moment that you've seen through the course of your career that you look back on as just a real pinnacle moment that you were able to enjoy and experience?
Well, I think obviously not only was it personally satisfying and a pinnacle moment for me personally, it also changed the whole financial basis of the business when we started Agents Helping Agents.
Yeah.
The bottom line is that I was a mentor here at my own agency, and I have a son now who's been here 20 years. Interestingly enough, he started right out of college, and that's been a blessing. So I was able to mentor him, my younger brother, and some younger people. But when we started Agents Helping Agents, it really gave me the opportunity to take, I think, my passions about helping people, especially younger people, and guiding them to success, which is very similar to what you do in the classroom, very similar to what you do in the court.
Right.
And so, from 1998 on, this last 20 years, I've been pretty much enmeshed in the Agents Helping Agents side, while my son, Terry, has kind of stepped up and took the leadership of the what we call our retail side or the Hyland side.
Yeah.
So, there's no doubt that was the pinnacle of both personally and professionally for me, over this last ride of 20 years especially.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure that was neat to be able to see that transition. But so on the flip side of that, I guess, is there anything that you look back on as a real valley, or maybe some might call it a fail or a moment that you look back on in your career that you certainly learned from, but that you don't necessarily want to go through again, and that you could kind of teach others, make sure to watch out for these pitfalls?
Well, and that's the thing about all small businesses. The problem is that early on, I didn't really have mentorship in terms of, I knew how to sell, but building a business entails so much more than that. So the financial end of it, in terms of setting budgets and hiring people and what do you pay them, how much is enough, how much is not enough. That piece of it was something I just had to learn by hook or crook. And I didn't always do it correctly, especially from a profit and loss standpoint. But I'll tell you what became the most significant thing in that area was I got involved with what they call the best practices of independent agency. And it was so enlightening to me because it forced me to break my business down and look at it in terms of income, in terms of expenses. Yeah. What best practice did, they gave me a model of, okay, here's how the best agencies in the United States operate. They spend this percentage on compensation. They spend this percentage on benefits. And, I looked at it and I started comparing my budget to theirs, and like I was 2% over here, 1% over here. And it didn't seem like a big deal, but when you got to the bottom line, that was your profit.
Yeah, that's right.
So all of a sudden, I had a guideline on how to make decisions in my business based on this best practices model. So from that point forward, we started to get financially more healthy. We were starting to base our decisions based on where we were in our budget. I mean, sometimes, it's like your personal budget. You may want something, but whether or not it's the right time to buy it is another question, right?
Yeah.
And so I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants early on until I got some guidance on that. And I follow, and to this day, I follow the best practices model, and we make pretty much all of our decisions of buying equipment or hiring additional people based on how it plays into the percentages that are outlined in my budget.
Yeah, that's excellent. You can't really, underestimate the value of being able to look at others and benchmarks in your industry and understanding what others are doing that has worked instead of trying to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of value in understanding that and certainly trying to follow through with it.
Yeah. You're very right. You mentioned the word benchmark, and that's the thing. In other words, we all can have an idea of whether we think we're doing good or bad, but until you split that against some objective criteria, you don't know for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good.
So benchmarks are very important.
So as you sit right now, I mean, at this point in your career, how would you define success? What does success look like for you at this point in your career?
Well, success for me, I guess, as I sit here, I'm 69, I'll be 70 in June, and still no definite plans about retiring at this point in time because I'm pretty much invested, still enjoying it, health's good, and we are perpetuating the business. In other words, I have a son here and a younger brother, and so over the last really 5 to 10 years, we've been moving to perpetuate it both financially and operationally. But for me, the greatest success that I feel right now is just that our operation is able to provide for and support the households of over 30 people now that work here at our office, of which most of them in many cases are women and working mothers. And to see them make a good salary, and see the fact that it enables them to, raise their families, provide for their children. I don't know. I never really thought about that until I got into this, but as looking at it now, it's one of my greatest satisfactions and feeling of success. Is that success for yourself is one thing, but when you look around all of a sudden and there's people who, benefited along the way and all around you, that's really important.
Yeah.
It is to me.
And, obviously, as you sit there now and are able to look at that and the impact you're able to have on others, do you think that your concept of success or definition of that has changed through the course of your career?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I think like a lot of us when we first start out in our 20s and 30s and of course, I was telling somebody yesterday that when I started at 32 years old after coming out of teaching, I had 3 children and my wife did work. But the point was I had no choice. If I was going to provide for those children, I had to make this thing work, right?
Yeah.
And the reason I say that, I was looking at something the other day and it said, losers are people who do what they want to do. Winners are people who do what they have to do. Okay? And in many cases, when I started out, I did what I had to do, whether I liked it or not.
Yeah.
But what I found out over time is that, I guess the focus was all about me and all about making sure I took care of myself and my family. But as time went on, I found out if that's very limited, if that's your only focus. And somewhere along the line, that's where Agents Helping Agents came. When we had this idea of sharing my vision and sharing my resources and talents with other people, then it changed the whole paradigm of our business. And I think that's where a lot of businesses flame out, is that the prime mover gets to a certain point, he drives it or she drives it based on their own initiatives for a while. But then if it doesn't, span out into the rest of the people somehow, then it kind of dies and goes away. And so, so I think the first part of my career was very selfish, very self-driven. And the last 20 years have been just the opposite. It's been kind of, looking to what can we do to help other people? What can we do to provide better opportunity for the people in our agency? And somehow, we've gotten, the success has gotten bigger and greater and greater. And, I don't know how that works, but it's kind of one of those deals that you help other people somehow, God steps in and helps you, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's sort of a lot more fun to share in success than it is to have it all by yourself.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of truth to that. So Tim, while we're on this idea of success, are you able to point to any particular kind of just keys to success, we might call them, that you can kind of point to and say, these are some kind of fundamental principles that I've been able to live by that have helped me maybe move through this journey over the course of the years?
Yeah, that's really simple. And I still preach this to our people here today because it's been the one key thing in my life. And it's all about, since we are a sales-driven organization, that, if my effort is consistent and persistent on a regular daily basis, I will succeed. And what I mean by that is it's kind of like doing the little stitches in your life and not worrying about the pattern. And what happens in business is we sit around thinking about where we'd like to be, but we forget that you can only get there by doing the next stitch each day, right?
Yeah.
In our case, it's making the phone calls, it's following up, it's sending the cards out, it's doing that and doing that every day.
Mm-hmm.
And people that I look around who are very successful, that's one thing you'll notice is that they're very consistent and persistent in what they do on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't worry about the results. The results will come if the activity is there,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And all great salespeople, will tell you that. And yet, we have our sales guys that come in here and they get one big deal in their mind and they wander around thinking about it all day and doing everything, but taking care of what's in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the day goes by and they really haven't achieved anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, that came from my dad. My dad was pretty big about that. He said, if you do the activity, if you do your prospecting every day, you make so many calls every day, you'll get your share. But to be honest with you, it goes back to what I said earlier. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to pick up the phone and ask people if I could quote their insurance, but I had to do it. Okay. If I want to be successful. And I think that's one of the things that I see today that a lot of these younger people are having difficulty with is that, I don't want to do it if it's not self-fulfilling, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to do it if it makes me uncomfortable. And I always tell them, oh my God, if I'd have didn't do all the things that made me uncomfortable, then I'd have been busted a long time ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I just don't think it works that way. I don't think life is that way. I certainly don't think success is that. Sure, you're going to be uncomfortable. It's just the nature of anybody's business. And yet, like I said, it's the number one thing that I think that I harp on a lot here to our young producers is, if you're doing the footwork, doing the stitches every day, then I promise you there'll come a time where, the results will happen.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you don't do that footwork every day, it's just hit or miss whether something's going to happen.
Right. Yeah. There's so much to be said for hard work. And to your point of getting out of that comfort zone. And, certainly we ultimately want to do something that we love at the end of the day. But even in something we love, there are those moments of discomfort that are going to get us there. That's a valuable lesson to learn. Of course, obviously, in coaching and having that opportunity, you get to see that, so much. And I've had the privilege of coaching several things through the course of my adult life. And it's helping people understand that hard work today, those push-ups today, those sprints today, whatever it is, it's frustrating. It's exhausting. You're sweating, you're tired, you're worn out, but the success that comes on the end of that is worth it. And trying to understand that daily grind, be able to look back someday and recognize how fortunate, how happy you are that you put in that hard work when you did because of the outcome, the ultimate outcome.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And it's the same thing you say in anything, whether it's sports or whether it's business, is that, as you said, if you're doing those push-ups every day, and even though it's not comfortable, you don't want to get up and do it, it will work. On the other hand, if you just want to show up for the games and expect everything's going to go well, it's probably not going to work very well.
Right.
So
right.
I agree. It's the same thing.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about the future a little bit here. So, you had mentioned you're 69 going on 70, you still love what you're doing. Have you thought about what the next 10 years look like for you professionally?
Yeah. I will start, phasing out. In other words, what I've been working on the last 2 years is passing down, my roles, both on the Hyland side, which is our retail side, mostly to my son. And then on the AHA side, agents helping agents, we have a team of 7 people. And so I'm working with those people to bring them in and mentor them and taking over the responsibilities I've had there.
Yeah.
So the good news about it is that I've kind of moved into a different level, because a lot of the agents that we've brought in over the years are either retiring themselves, or they want to sell their agencies, and so I've had experience in all that. So now what I'm doing mostly is helping these guys bring their agency to a conclusion. In other words, a lot of people don't have plans for the end game in terms of what they're going to do with their business. Mm-hmm. So I'm working with a lot of them on their perpetuation plans, things that I've been through myself. And so I'm kind of enjoying that, because, that's a new role for me, but it's also one that I have to deal with myself. Yeah. To share that with you, 5 years ago, we started working on the perpetuation plan. Mm-hmm. If you're the top guy, the older guy like me, it's no fun, because you're always sitting there talking about when Tim's gone. Yeah. Yeah. When Tim's gone, and I'm going like, guys, I'm still here.
You see me, right? I'm sitting right here.
But the point is, you have to do it. You can't wait until, I conk off one day, because that's what causes a lot of problems in businesses. You've got to have a perpetuation plan set up, both financially and operationally. So anyway, we're going to ride that out. I'm committed full time for sure through a couple of years till 72 years old. Mm-hmm. And from there, my hope would be, as long as my health stays as good as it is that I stay on in a consulting capacity. But I'll be honest with you, I really enjoy it. I love working with young people, and they're getting younger and younger, by the way. Not that all of a sudden these are our kids. These are my grandkids' age and things like that. But that's okay, and it is. Because I'll just tell you is that, this business, although a lot of people look askew or think it's a little bit negative about insurance, it's a very vital business. It's something people have to have. If you've ever been there when his house is burned down, I'll tell you how important it is. Yeah. So the bottom line is, and people in our business make a good amount of money, the ones who do it well. Yeah. And I said to a lot of the younger people, I said, you might snicker at insurance, but let me tell you, the people who are good in our business make every bit as much money as doctors, lawyers, and CPA. Yeah. So anyway, I really like, working. We have some younger ones here right now in their 20s. Yeah. And working to give them the foundation they need, because it doesn't happen overnight. Right. To make a career in our industry and raise their families and pay their school bills and all the things that I did. Yeah. So anyway, I'm enjoying this part of it, and again, I'm not a retired type of guy. I'm just a very, very. My golf is very questionable, so there's no way I can play golf every day. Yeah. My wife has been retired for a while, and she's got her life all set. She doesn't want me interrupting it. So I think I'm going to continue to be involved in work for a while.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And that's one of the things that I often talk about on the show is that concept of retirement. And that is a, fairly common thread that I often hear, and then that I personally kind of agree with as well, is that if the idea of retirement is go do what you love doing, but your vocation is something that you truly love doing, you enjoy being a part of that every day. Why sit on the front porch or go play golf or go fishing every day when you kind of enjoy going to work and enjoy what you're doing? There's just something really to be said for that, instead of thinking that retirement is simply about rest and relaxation. There's something great about being able to use our mind and use ourselves still and being able to help others and give back and do something for other people as we continue to grow and experience life.
Yeah. Well, along those lines, I'll just tell you, we just started a senior care division here. And that all grew out of my own experience also. I had to go turning 65 and look at the Medicare supplements.
Yeah.
And all that, I went, oh my gosh, people need help with this.
Yeah.
And we have a whole clientele of people here. And so we created this new division that works with, people on their Medicare supplements and works with long-term care, short-term care. And it's amazing, how we've had a lot of response to it. We've hired a specialist in that area because it is another way to serve people, because they're so intimidated by what's going on with this whole health insurance thing. Yeah. That even very smart people are confused about what the options are. So senior care is the latest, development here. And I'm kind of excited about that because, again, I know what the pain is because I went through it myself.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, so it's always, our business is always adapting and always trying to find other ways to serve the clientele that we've had, beyond just the auto and homes and their businesses. So it's going to be a major factor over the next couple of years with all the baby boomers running around
Yep. It'll become even more necessary, and it is very confusing. It's such a confusing thing, and that's a great service to be able to provide and help people navigate that and understand what to do with it. What does it mean for them? What's the best opportunity and option for them? That's a huge service right now. Yeah,
we're excited about it, and we're just got it off the ground, and already we're getting a lot of response on it.
Yeah. Well, great. So Tim, something I love to ask is if we get off this call today and you find out that you just won $1 million, what do you do with that money?
I go ask my wife.
Great answer.
Because I tell you, she would have more quick ideas than I would. That's for sure. Well, I think we would certainly. I've got 3 children, 8 grandchildren, 2 great-grandchildren. Yeah. So I think we would want to provide some help for them educationally, for the future maybe, and setting up a little money aside for that. Hopefully we could look to find some charities. I'm very involved in the community and several, nonprofit organizations.
Yeah.
Always have been. And so certainly we could help out there. And my hope would be is that we could use it, just to help other people. I mean, fortunately, our business is going very, very well. And from a financial standpoint, it's not that we have to have that by any means to live or to. So my hope would be is that we would provide for first things first, and then take a good chunk of it and find some people out there who need it and direct it in that that direction.
Yeah, that's great. That's good. So I always like to finish with a couple of questions relating to how we help others. And so, through the course of your career, you've had the opportunity to work with a tremendous number of people. Both early in your careers, you had bosses, and then, as your career evolved, your coworkers, now other agencies that you're working with. And so as you've had the opportunity to do that, have you recognized any common kind of personality characteristics that you work well with, that are just kind of a magnet for you, characteristics that you kind of automatically attract to of people that you like to be around from a personality perspective?
Yeah, well, I think, that's evolved over the years. I think a lot of us, when you start your own business, there's a lot of financial risk. There's a lot of anxiety, financial insecurity. And so I would think, and it's interesting because there are some people here now who've been with me a long time, and they could tell you that I'm a different guy than I was in the early days.
Yeah.
And I think my fear of financial insecurity made me more closed. It certainly made me a little bit more irritable. It certainly made me put, pressure on people that, I didn't really need to do. But as time going on, what I learned is that, people perform much better, okay, when they feel their boss is approachable, when they feel that they can talk and be listened to. Mm-hmm. If any skill that I've developed over the last 32 years, it's listening. Like a lot of salespeople, I was not a good listener when I started out. I wanted to talk you over you. I told you I'm from a family of 7. We're all just 10 years apart, top to bottom. Yeah. If you get us all together, the only way to do it is scream up over the top of the other guy. Right?
Yeah.
So nobody listened to anybody.
Yeah.
So learning to listen has just been so valuable, not only as a leader, but then also in sales. It's so critical. And I think that's helped me a lot because, when you learn to listen, I think it's a message to people that they have value, and that they have worth. And those are the type of people I like to be around, by the way. People who, on the other hand, will also listen to me. Mm-hmm. And I'll just finish. It really makes me think, in the world we're living in right now, all the turmoil, politically and otherwise, probably the most polarized society we've had in a long, long time. And I just see that. I mean, it's almost like anymore, if you're not on my side, you don't think like I think, you're wrong and I hate you. There's no in between.
Yeah.
And people are not willing to listen to other people anymore. They've already made up their mind what they think and what you think, and that's it. And I hate that. I hate that, but I think hopefully we'll work our way through that as a society. But I know one thing for sure is that when I was coming through the ranks as a player, as back in teaching and coaching, is that, when I was concerned, when I was hurt, when I was angry, I wanted somebody to listen to me who would give me a fair shake. And so, I've learned that lesson, and I think it's helped not only me personally as an individual, but certainly I think it's made me a better leader, And people, I think today, are not afraid of me anymore. They know I'm very approachable, that they can not only approach me on business things, but even on personal things that they may have going in their life.
That's a great lesson learned, and so true. That ability to listen and the approachability, especially as a leader. I think oftentimes leaders fail to remember how important that is because they. We kind of think that it's important for us to make decisions and do this and be quick and move on. And sometimes what the people around us need is that leader that's willing to sit and listen, pay attention, empathize, and try to understand where they're coming from and not solve the problems, but just listen to what's going on and know that their world is important and it's important to us. And that's a great lesson learned. Absolutely a great lesson learned.
I agree.
Tim, do you have any books or authors or other resources out there that you might be able to recommend to others that have helped you or that you kind of leverage for expertise?
I, kind of at the point in my career, in the insurance career, when I was, changing from, just kind of winging this thing and doing it off of my instincts. And that's when I got involved with best practices. I also got involved with Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People at that time. And he was very, very popular at the time. And it was it kind of really just paralleled with where I was going in my life personally, and a number of different things. And without getting into all the habits, they were very much along the lines of the type of thing we just discussed, in terms of understanding that I wasn't working with machines. These were human beings that I was, employing, and that they needed to be approached and treated accordingly if you wanted to find success. Because, It's just like on a basketball team, a guy can be a star, or he can be a team player.
Yeah.
And, I've had sales guys that were great stars. They could go on their own, but they were awful in terms of, integrating with the rest of the organization.
Yeah.
And so I think, that's been my journey and my growth in this whole thing. And I think Cubby's book had a lot to do with that. I still have a lot of the young guys read that.
It's a great one.
And, I kind of grabbed on and held on to that. But there's lots of other books, as you know, that have been out that kind of talk about the same principles. But that one basically had the basic principles that I wanted to see show up in my business. And so it was a good influence on me.
Yeah, that's a great resource. And that's that's kind of one of my top 10 must reads for anybody in business. It's just such a good one. And you're right. There are a lot of other books out there that, kind of refer back to it or take those points and drill down further. But it's just got a lot of core fundamental principles that are just good to understand in business and even just outside of business and in developing relationships and how we interact with other people and all that we do.
Yeah.
So Tim, before we close out of here, do you have any other final thoughts, last advice for people that are out there that are striving for their level of success or striving for what success means to them? Do you have any kind of final thoughts for people?
Well, again, as I look back, on lessons that I've learned over time, and one of the first things I would say is don't be afraid to make mistakes. In other words, a lot of times we sit on the bench contemplating what's the best way to do something. And we never do anything, meaning some people think, well, what's the best way to attract insurance customers? Should we send out postcards? Should we be on social media? Should we? And I always say, why don't you just ask them? Until you figure it out, why don't you just ask everybody that hey, can I talk to you about your insurance?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we complicate the means to obscure the end. The end is usually, very simple, but we spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to create the opportunity.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, so we've got social media things going, we've got all that going, but the bottom line is keep it simple.
Yeah.
And look, if, do something every day, as I said, and be consistent and persistent. And because not everything is going to work. But for sure, you'll never know what's not going to work if you don't ever try.
Yeah.
So get in the game. Don't sit on the sidelines. Take your chances, and you're going to win some days. You're going to lose some days, but you're going to learn every day.
Yeah.
What doesn't work. And that's why one of the things that we've been talking about a lot here, and I think it's kind of a current thing. When they talk about millennials and that. But one of the common things I've seen about successful people, they all have a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
And by that I mean, it's not that they're panicky, but they operate with a sense of urgency is that now is the best time to get this done.
Right.
And, you see many things like if you have a list of to-dos every morning, do the hard one first, Yeah. Do the hardest ones first. Don't keep pushing it down the list because all that's going to happen, you're going to string it out to the next day and the next day.
Yeah.
If you have a sense of urgency to move past things, I think, you cannot get stuck and find yourself vacillating over things. So that sense of urgency, and I think some people just have that naturally. Somebody asked me the other day, what was your sense of urgency? I said, well, I was starving when I started.
Yeah,
so
that's a sense of urgency.
My urgency was I better make some money here or we're not going to be able to pay our bills.
Yeah.
But today is my I have a sense of urgency today, and it's to do whatever's necessary to help perpetuate this business.
Yeah.
So that one, it can pay me out what I'm due, and two, that it can go on for my son and maybe the next generation or whoever comes along.
Yeah.
So I think you always can find a new reason, to have that sense of urgency. And for me, that keeps me young. It avoids that idea that been there, done that, game over. I guess I'll ride off into the sunset. play golf every day and, that whole deal.
Yeah.
And that might be okay for some people. It's just not okay for me. You got to know who you are. I love being in the mix. I love, they say being helping younger people. And so that's why I see myself, continuing to be a part of this to some extent, for a long time.
Yeah.
But, I'm not, because all my friends are retired. So, some guys worked at Ford, they worked at GE. Some of them, post office, we had my 50th reunion. One guy's that worked for the post office. He's been retired 20 years.
Wow.
So, but I'm saying, guys, that, that's okay for you. I'm not knocking that. That's just not me. I'm not made that way. So I think knowing who you are, being true to that, is very important for everybody. So,
yeah.
So anyway, I look forward to, continuing. And the other thing about that too, Kyle, to say is that I never even think about it, because I kind of stay in the present, I stay in the moment, and everything's fine. The only time I ever think about it is when somebody says, how come you're not retired yet? And I go,
well,
well, I don't know. I didn't even think about it. I'm just rolling along here.
Yeah, there's always something else that I'm working on. Something else needs to get done. Who has time to retire?
So like we just started senior care, right? And that was my idea. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah.
But people look at you like, what's wrong with you? You're supposed to retire, get your rocking chair, and well, maybe so. But I mean, it keeps me young, and like I say, as long as God gives me the health and keeps my mind halfway straight, I want to kind of stay in the game. Stay in the game and keep playing if I can.
There you go. Well, Tim, that is great. Thank you so much. It's you've offered some excellent advice. I love the story and your journey, and really, really appreciate you coming on and taking the time to just share your information with others and just continue to give back the way that you've done. So thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate your interest. Thank you very much.
Thank you for checking out today's Business Playmaker. Links to the resources discussed in today's episode are available in the show notes. For more information and resources from your host, you can visit him at www.kylegorman.com. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast for the latest episodes. And until next time, make it a great day.
Well, thank you so much for checking out today's episode of Business Playmakers. What I'd like to do is thank our sponsor, of course, over at Gorman Recruiting. And I want to let you all know that as of the release of this episode, we have just introduced a new service over at Gorman Recruiting where we will give businesses we'll give them access to the premier job boards and the premier job placements that we have available to us. So we've asked for feedback about what we can do to further support the business community. And one of the things that we have heard is that, a lot of people, they want to vet their own candidates. They want to be able to go through and conduct those interviews, but they have trouble finding good candidates, which makes perfectly good sense in today's workforce environment. So what we've done is we are opening up access to our resources to our clients. So if you are struggling to find candidates, then please reach out to the team that we have over at Gorman Recruiting and talk to them about this new service, which will allow you to post to all of the job boards that we have access to, including all of the big dogs. We use up to 150 different job boards, as well as all of the high traffic social media platforms. And we're able to allow you access to those resources with a single point of contact, just simply by working with us. We'll take care of everything. It's a month to month. There's no long-term contracts, but it gives you the opportunity to use the same resources that we have access to build an amazing candidate base for a position that you are trying to fill. So get a hold of the team over at Gorman Recruiting today. You can contact them at info@gormancompanies.com. Thanks so much and have a wonderful day.